Into the Wild is a movie about what it means to truly live. Not just to be alive, but to live. For Christopher McCandless, lying about on a sofa, watching a football game, eating snacks in a warm house was a fate worse than death. McCandless yearned to be among the mountains, the forests, the rivers and the seas. He wanted to be closer to the animals and he wanted to eat what he could kill himself. Supermarkets with their snazzy advertising and impressively low prices be damned. In other words, McCandless raged against the life that human civilization has spent thousands of years working towards. Our ancestors struggled through unimaginable hardships so that their offspring could have a better life than them. And this process repeated itself and repeated itself. Eventually we got to a place as a species where one of the greatest challenges we faced is the lack of challenge itself. McCandless was a precocious youth who was intelligent and successful in most things he attempted. He had just graduated from a prestigious university. From what we know about him, it isn't hard at all to imagine him becoming a success in whatever career field he chose. Business, law, academia, he probably would have been A-OK in any of them. The fact that he chose to spend his years, subsequent to his college graduation, living as a vagabond can be looked at from different points of view. It can be seen as a cry for help. It can be seen as him rebelling. But in my opinion, it really stemmed from McCandless wanting a raw, uninhibited experience of life. He rejected the voyeurism of watching life through the TV and went out there and did it for himself. There is no doubt about it. Christopher McCandless would have been Netflix's worst customer. There is something arresting about watching McCandless's story and journey play out on the screen. It is so unusual you have to check yourself and ask, does this even make sense? Does it make sense for a person to sleep under the stars and hunt and scavenge for food? Well, I guess it does, as it's how humans have survived for most of our history. It's just shocking to see it happen in a modern, Western setting. When McCandless burns his money, it's something so contrary to the modern mindset that I'm surprised it hasn't started riots or been banned from the screen. It would probably be less shocking to see someone deliberately burn some part of their own body than to burn actual, good, American money. How will this fellow pay for his McDonald's or his legally required car insurance? Well, the McDonald's is taken half-eaten from a bin, and we're told in the book that McCandless believes the government has no right to concern themselves with the state of his car. As McCandless wanders from place to place, it becomes very clear that he is not going anywhere in particular. The wandering is the destination. However, as the story progresses, it slowly emerges that he does have one focal point in his mind: Alaska. He is determined to get there and do some more wandering, exploring and subsisting when he does. Alaska appeals to McCandless as the wildest, most isolated part of North America. He wanted to embrace that wilderness and test his survival skills. To that end, he decides to proceed into the Alaskan wilderness without even a map. He wanted to ramp the difficulty level of the game up to 100 and play it without a tutorial, just like how the first people to ever discover Alaska would have. Alexander Supertramp, as he preferred to know himself, lasted an incredible 113 days, living mostly on squirrels, boards, roots and seeds. Eventually, the movie suggests he was poisoned by wild potato seeds. It was clear that this young man was disillusioned with the modern world. The idea of using his precious time on Earth to work a regular job just did not appeal to him. McCandless related greatly to Henry David Thoreau's words uttered when he answered people's questions about his own life in solitude and nature. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. For McCandless there is too much to explore, both out there in the great wild as well as inside of himself. His entries into his recovered diary suggest that his days staying in an abandoned bus in the Alaskan wilderness were some of the happiest and most meaningful of his life. It took being that far removed from society, with all its distractions and misdirections, to find his own true nature and his place within the universe. McCandless described this ascendancy to the Alaskan wilds as the climatic battle to kill the false being within and victoriously conclude the spiritual revolution. He knew society had a terrible habit of putting fake veneers on things and shielding you from your own self. Only a complete jettison from the last vestiges of modernity could set him free. And if that meant journeying to a place hostile to a modern man, then so be it. McCandless knew what he was getting into and had read The Maine Woods by Thoreau, which contained the famous quote about nature. There was clearly felt the presence of a force not bound to be kind to man. We will never know for sure whether wild potato seeds poisoned McCandless or whether he simply starved to death after a barren spell of wild game. We know that he tried to leave the wilderness, but the river in which he had crossed to get there had risen too high to cross back over again. We also know that if he had brought a map, he would have discovered there was a bridge not far from where he was that he could have used to cross the river. But maps are for people who have a destination in mind, and McCandless didn't. You can't find truth on a map, and that's all that he was looking for. In the end, I believe he found it. We do know that McCandless's story was immediately divisive when it was first made public, and it still is to this day. Some people, such as myself, view him as a rebel leader, an iconoclast, and a champion of long-lost virtuous ideals. Others view him as a naive idiot and a loser. There are even plenty who appear to be angry at McCandless, and whilst I am sure they are angry, I doubt it's really McCandless they are angry at. I believe it makes some people mad, knowing that unlike them, someone out there refused to allow themselves to be subjugated by anything except nature in all its glory. McCandless refused to allow some petty, fast food supervisor to influence him, but had no complaints when the heavens opened and rain thundered down, or when a cold snap came, or when game was hard to find. One thing is for sure, Bob Dylan said it right when he sang, "Don't criticise what you can't understand." And as for Christopher McCandless, well, he was certainly beyond your command.